Economic Conclave. With these words, may I request you, Honorable Finance Minister, to kindly deliver your inaugural address. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you very much, N.K. Singh, for giving that very elaborate introduction. I'm indeed very grateful to Professor Jagdish Bhagwati for having come here to join in the third edition of Kautilya Conclave. And before me, I see a select August gathering. Finance Minister, no doubt, but it just makes me a bit nervous to have to talk before this rich audience. And it is your views that I look forward to at the end of this conference to guide me further in taking India's economy in all its divergence and also the challenges, the newer challenges which are coming before us, literally by the day, and make sure that India continues to be the fastest growing economy. So thank you very much for coming here. I begin with a thanks, but I really do mean, because I feel very humbled to stand on the dais along with Professor Bhagwati and to be able to address. It requires a different kind of courage, but I take the challenge. Let me at the outset thank and congratulate N.K. Singh, President of the Indian Institute of Economic Growth, and Dr. Chetan Ghate, Director of the Institute of Economic Growth, for organizing this third edition of the Kautilya Economic Conclave, which begins today, and that brings together a galaxy of renowned scholars from around the world. This conclave provides an opportunity for the exchange of latest research and ideas on a host of issues that are engaging the attention of governments globally. Why the India story will provide a unique opportunity for thinking about policy, and it is that which I would want to expand on a bit. India's creditable economic performance in the recent decade was underscored by its leapfrog from the 10th to the 5th largest economy in a matter of 5 years. Sustained high growth rates and maintained inflation well within the comfortable range was the challenge before us, and we are performing to our best of abilities. While it took us 75 years to reach a per capita income of $2,730 as per IMF projections, it will take only 5 years to add another $2,000. The upcoming decades will see the steepest rise in living standards for the common man, truly making it a period-defining era for an Indian to live in. This is being achieved with declining inequality, as the Gini coefficient for rural India's numbers declined from 0.283 to 0.266. And for the urban areas, it declined from 0.363 to 0.314. I expect these improvements to continue as the effects of the last 10 years of economic and structural reforms manifest more thoroughly in the data in the coming years as the COVID shock fades away from the economy. The Kautilya Economic Conclave has become a congregation and a congregation event for policy experts in economics and finance. As India strives towards Vikasit Bharat, we require thought leaders and experts such as yourselves to guide policy making. From a policy standpoint, India's economic rise in the coming decades will be unique in a few ways. First, while India will continue to grow over the decade the global backdrop is no longer the same. In the early 2000s, emerging markets like China grew relatively more easily due to a favorable global trade and investment climate. This poses a potential challenge and an opportunity for India, while simultaneously pushing for diplomacy and cooperation, as we did during our G20 presidency. India must develop its domestic capacity to grow and develop sustainably. Second, India seeks to double its per capita income in a matter of few years for its 1.4 billion population, which makes up about 18% of the global total. In a fragmented and fractured world, where several persistent conflicts may worsen, posing a threat to global peace that is the bedrock for prosperity. Third, the development journey will have to contend with the twin challenges of dealing with the legacy emissions of the developed world and managing India's energy transition. The balancing act requires a whole of government approach and contextualized solutions unique to India. Moreover, India's energy demand and energy use practices have something to offer to the world, such as the food to feed balance. Lastly, the advent of new technologies may leave a more lasting impact on labor, including workers that people gathered here and outside have to reflect upon. The forces that will shape the Indian era. From a domestic perspective, India's youthful population provides a large base for total factor productivity improvements, savings, and investment. While India's share of the young is set to rise over the next 2 decades, several other developing economies are past their demographic peak. A nation's greatest asset during its high growth years is a young population. India needs to ensure that they are cognitively equipped, emotionally strong, and physically fit. That is our core policy priority. Second, consumption will organically rise over the coming decade. As of now, 43% of Indians are younger than 24 years of age, and they have yet to explore their consumption behavior fully. There will be organic growth in consumption as they become full-fledged consumers. Simultaneously, a rising middle class will pave the way for strong consumption, inflow of foreign investment, and a vibrant marketplace. Third, India's innovation ability will mature and improve over the coming decades. As the Global Innovation Index for 2023 shows, India has been performing above the average in innovation for its income groups. There is a gradual maturing of innovation potential across sectors. We observe, for instance, a maturing of India's services sector exports and a rise in innovative potential within this sector. The global capability centers boom that we have seen today has put India squarely at the center of innovation. With nearly 56% of GCC's revenue coming from R&D services. Similarly, our low-cost scalable innovation is evident in India's tech, low-cost vaccines, and a much-celebrated Chandrayaan mission. Fourth, our financial system is well capitalized to fuel productive credit. India's financial market has evolved into a competitive system whose crisis management, regulatory management, and governance standards are at par with those of developed financial markets. At the same time, the Indian financial system has remained nimble to the growing needs of a developing India as it widened its scale and scope of financial inclusion. There has also been a sharp narrowing in the gaps in financial access, that is between rich and the poor, male and female, rural and urban, over the past decade. Fifth, India also finds itself amidst the global geopolitical repositioning effort which is going on. This repositioning can act as a structural force to India's advantage by creating robust supply chains with countries with strategic congruence. India benefits from the new international order, which is reshaping better to reflect the power distribution of today's world. The fiscal tools and policies to establish an era of growth. I'll spend a minute on it. The role of the government lies in unleashing the structural drivers of growth using effective governance through Jan Bhagidari. With sound economic policies and strategic planning forming the cornerstone of the growth process. I outlined some key areas of the government's focus that continue laying the groundwork for Vikasit Bharat. Our government continues to uphold its commitment to reducing the fiscal deficit. Aided by buoyant revenue generation, restrained revenue expenditure growth, and healthy economic activity, the fiscal deficit is estimated to decline further from 5.6% of GDP in FY24, I'm basing on provisional actuals, to 4.9% in FY25. The commitment to fiscal discipline will not only help keep bond yields in check, but will translate to lower economy-wide borrowing costs. The quality of government expenditure continues to improve. Capital expenditure is budgeted to increase by 17.1% to 11.1 lakh crores this fiscal. This amounts to 3.4% of GDP in FY25. Additionally, a larger proportion of fiscal deficit is now accounted for by capital outlays, indicating an increasingly investment-oriented deficit financing. The decline in commodity prices has facilitated the lowering of the budget allocation for subsidies on fertilizer and fuel. This has contributed to restraining the growth in revenue expenditure, which is estimated to increase by 6.2% year on year. To ensure policy continuity, the bedrock of sustained growth, our government has initiated and sustained reforms across infrastructure, banking, trade policy, investment, and ease of doing business. Infrastructure reforms over the past decade have expanded the national highways, increasing by 1.6 times from 2014 to 2024. The Bharatmala Pariyojana has significantly expanded the national highway network, increasing the length of high-speed corridors by 12 times and 4-lane roads by 2.6 times in the 10 years between 2014 and 24. Today, 11.7 kilometers of national highway roads are laid on an average per day, which is 3 times more than what was the case before FY14. India's ports have also made remarkable strides over the past decade and are now at par or even better and above international players. The economic survey this year reported that port turnaround time has dropped by 50% between 2014 and 24. Currently, the median turnaround time for Indian ports is at 0.9 days, better than the US's 1.5 days, Australia's 1.7 days, and Singapore's 1 day. Such substantial advancements in logistics efficiency are reflected in India's sharp ascent in the World Bank's Logistics Performance Index from 54 in 2014 and 44 in 2018 to 38 in 2023. The soundness and resilience of India's banking sector have been underpinned by sustained policy focus on asset quality improvements, enhanced provisioning for bad loans, sustained capital adequacy, and a rise in profitability. NPA ratios are at a multi-year low, and banks have now efficient debt recovery mechanisms, ensuring that the financial system stays healthy and the cycle lasts longer is another of our core policy priorities. Trade policy reform has focused on trade facilitation and integrating deeper with nations close geopolitically to us, and in this we are in line with the Foreign Trade Policy 2023. Exporters today find it easier to facilitate their trade compared to a decade ago. This is evident from India's achievement of 93.5% in 2023 in the UN Global Survey on Trade Facilitation. In addition, a deep free trade agreement or several deep free trade agreements with partners such as UAE, Australia, and the EFTA region, a clustered approach to developing export hubs is also being pursued through schemes such as Make in India and districts as export hubs. Investment reform and ease of doing business are central to this government's policy of minimum government and maximum governance. The government has pursued a multi-pronged policy of regulation to reduce investment costs and improve efficiency. We have pursued the deregulation and simplification of labor codes, rolled out the GST, the RERA Act, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and FDI liberalization across sectors. Innovation and rapid advancement in total factor productivity are required in Amrit Kal. Taking cognizance of this fact, for the year FY24, that is, budget allocated 1,200 crore rupees to research and development projects. Further research and development brought forth by a collaboration between academia, the private sector, and government bodies remains key to tapping innovation in the country. Recognizing this, we have set up the Anusandhan Research Fund to seed and promote research across academic institutions, R&D, laboratories, and the academia. Ultimately, the largest stakeholders and beneficiaries of the growth process towards Vikasit Bharat will be the four major castes, namely the Garib or the poor, Mahilaye or the women, Yuva, the youth, and Annadata, the farmer. Accordingly, the budget in Amrit Kal will be devised with these stakeholders in mind. In conclusion, the Indian era is not a phenomenon is not a new phenomenon if we look at the civilizational history of the subcontinent. For 1,000 years, India has created a cultural sphere of philosophy, polity, science, and art which spread across borders, not through conquests, but through its cultural magnificence. During this period, the rest of the world benefited from India's soft power. By 2047, as India crosses the 100-year mark of independence from imperial rule, the Vikasit Bharat will assure prosperity not just to Indians, but to the rest of the world. By becoming central to the vibrant exchange of ideas, technology, and culture. I hope the deliberations in the next few days will be vigorous, stimulating, and fruitful. And I hope that overseas scholars carry pleasant and happy memories when they return home. I wish the conference success and look forward to the deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that far-reaching